Good afternoon. I too would like to echo the comments and sentiments of my co-panelists to thank, let me say I am my mother's son and my grandmother's grandson. And they both taught me that when you enter somebody's house, you thank the people who invited you. So Brother Cobb and Brother Walker, thank you for inviting me and us to commemorate and mark this important occasion and to have this important dialogue. I also would like to thank the many movement veterans, many SNCC members, not former members, I would say SNCC members, because it seems that I have learned that once a member of SNCC, always a member of SNCC. So the many SNCC members who are here, who have taken the time to mentor and to tutor so many over so many years. And I would also like to thank all those who have taken the time out just to be here this afternoon, students, community folk, and the like, because this is an ongoing conversation that is important, and it's important that we have. I have also been given the charge of speaking for a moment or two, not only about sort of SNCC and American history and memory, and I will certainly say a word on that, but our work as sort of on SNCC in particular. For her, it seems as though part of it was people who, and so it was my grandmother, raised in Brooklyn, New York, but my grandmother, brother fight that fight. Father got his degree in social work at Central State. And my mother wanted to know what that means in high school, but it's people talking to you. Off to Cornerstone Baptist Church, I was headed up to Harlem with my uncle, going to hear Dr. Clark and Dr. Bent, First World, up on 145th, listening to what they had to say, talking to my uncle about what I had just heard. At age 13, had the opportunity to go over to Ghana to make the physical connection. They said, this is going to be your rites of passage at 13 years old to spend 2 weeks in Ghana and the Ivory Coast and Senegal. And so before I even knew what I wanted to do professionally, I knew it had to be done in service to the people. In high school, I went to a public high school. Some of those who may be familiar a little bit with New York, I went to Midwood High School. And in New York City, if you want to get a good public school education, you got to know how to game the system. And part of that means going to magnet schools. And so you apply to these magnet schools. And so I went to a school that was ostensibly desegregated, fully integrated, almost 50-50 people of color and white folk. But then if you broke down the magnets and the tracks, you realize that it was two magnet programs that were 90% white, and to get me through high school and out of the public school system was 90% African American. So even within the school system, there was tracking and resegregation. So I was a part of that, and I was in the Medical Science Training Institute or magnet program. And I spent the summer, I was talking to a brother earlier about this, I spent the summer up at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital and doing some research in the Department of Anatomy and Cell Biology. And I was good, I was an A student. And I did very good during the summer program, and after 8 weeks of the summer program, the people get you together and they're going around the room and they're saying, well, what did you learn from this program? What do you want to do? And they came to me, I said, I learned that this is not what the hell I want to do. I do not want to sit in a lab with 4 other folk who have no idea how to carry on a conversation more than 5 words. I need to be interacting and engaging with some people. So that left me with 2 options. I said, if you want to interact with people, if you want to be engaged in the process of continual learning, you can either become a teacher or a preacher. Now, I grew up in the church, and that also taught me that I was a Christian, but I just wasn't a very good one. So that sort of ruled out preacher, at least for the time being. So that led me into teacher. And I give all the respect to those who teach in K through 12 and public schools in particular, but I also knew that you got to know something about yourself when you're choosing your profession. I knew I didn't have much patience. I don't have much patience for K through 12. The great thing about teaching at college, if you get mad at a college student, you just throw them out the classroom. And so I said, I want to be at that level, partly because I want to reach out, but also because I still want to be engaged in this process of learning. And so when I leave Brooklyn and head down to Atlanta, Georgia, and go down to Morehouse College, it was this idea already planted in my head that no matter what you do, and by then I already decided I wanted to go into history and study African American history, that it was to learn what happened in the past so I can help create models for how people can move forward and my people can move forward into the future. And so it was at Morehouse College, and I happened to mention this the other day in Raleigh. Frank Smith was up, and he said something about he graduated or left Morehouse in 1960 or so, and he said after that they didn't leave it, they didn't let any more smart folk into Morehouse College. Now that ain't make no damn sense to me, so I had to let the brother know that they at least let one or two in after the last 40 years. But it was at Morehouse where I began to learn about the movement, right? So it's not just being exposed to what the elders are teaching you, and that sort of elder wisdom and knowledge, which is critical because that helps you interpret sort of facts and those things you interact. But then it's taking the time, and this is the beauty of college and those who are in college here and going on later to graduate school, to have that time to sit down and think about what you're reading. Think about these experiences. Begin to interpret and analyze what came before. And so that process began at Morehouse. And so when I head off to graduate school at Duke, now Duke is a very nice place. They trained me very well. But it's at Morehouse where I learned, at that black college. And so, you know, and not at that elite white school with very nice people. Wesley was there. There were very nice people there. Very nice people. But there's a difference between what you learn in the classroom, what you learn in the dormitory at Morehouse College, at our black colleges, than what you learn in these Ivy League elite colleges. There simply is a fundamental difference, but that does not mean that the learning process ends. The learning process is continuing. And so, I'm not even going to ask how much time I have. So from there, while I'm at Duke, I say, okay, what do I want to do? Because you also have to balance, and this gets back to this idea of sort of American history and memory, and SNCC and American history and memory, and historians. You know, there are hoops and hurdles that we have to jump through if you want to be in the academy, if this is going to be your chosen profession. And we can't ignore those, because you do have to go through those, but you have to go through those with integrity. You have to go through those with an idea and a commitment to the work that you were doing. So I have friends who were in graduate school and since met others later, and who chose very nice topics to work on. Working on some small fragment of something in the middle of nowhere that ain't 3 people in the world concerned about. And I say power to you, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that was going to have some meaning and relevance. To look into something that was going to have some meaning and relevance, not only to me, but to others. And at the time when I began the research for what eventually became the book Bloody Lounge, you know, I was 24 years old. And I said, well, what were other people doing at 24 years old that were changing the world? And that leads me to SNCC. That leads me to SNCC. And not only this curiosity, intellectual curiosity about how did they do what they did, but also this realization that what I was reading about what they did made no sense to me. This idea that, and this is where we're talking about sort of American historians, and particularly those who focus on the 60s. Now we have to be clear about what we're talking about, because we have civil rights historians, we have black power historians, those who are committed to getting this history correct. And then we have those who dabble in this history, but they're not studying it. They're using it to explain their own particular agendas. And we really see that with many 20th century American historians and those who focus on the quote-unquote 60s. And so they'll slide over into movement history and pick out something, and that's supposed to be the explanation for everything. So SNCC had been reduced to 1964, to Freedom Summer. And if you go back a little earlier,